how y'all doing. Here we go again. All right, we're back, and we're going to continue talking about medical anthropology today. Um, Heading into part 5 of our discussion of medical anthropology. And just before we start, have you guys, anybody out there watching this thing, Tiger King? Right, I know it's like the rage right now. And I'm just wondering if any of you out there are watching Tiger King. It's outrageous. It's like watching a car wreck. You can't turn away from it. You just can't. I have 2 more parts to go, but it is indescribable. So anyway, if you haven't seen it and you're looking for something really weird to watch during the pandemic, that's the thing to be watching. Anyway, okay, we're still talking about medical anthropology, like I said, and so far we've defined medical anthropology, and then we've talked about different kinds of, I would call them traditional or folk systems of healing, health systems, community healing, community-based healing, humoral healing, and then we talked about different kinds of healers. We talked a little bit about healing substances. And today, what we're going to do is we want to say a little something or ask a little something about, do these traditional systems work? Do these indigenous or aboriginal or folk systems or traditional systems, whatever you want to call them, do they work? Okay. And so let's take that question up, all right? Because that's going to lead us to say a couple things about Western biomedicine as well. So let me just get myself reduced down here. Okay. And we'll move when we get my pen ready. Let's see. Let's go with, magenta. That's a nice one. We'll go with magenta today. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, yeah, very nice. Okay. All right. So do traditional healing methods work? And I want to talk about 3 different reasons why we can say, right, that traditional healing methods do in fact work. In fact, everything works to some extent or another, right? Everything works to some extent or another. Now, that's not the same as saying that each one is as effective as the other, but they work, right? They all work to some extent or another. And some of the efficacy of Western biomedical practices work for the same reasons that some of these traditional practices work as well. So let's start with this one. I think it's a real easy one. Okay, first of all, right? So I said everything works to some extent or another. And the first reason why is because most sickness is self-correcting, right? Most sickness is self-correcting anyway. So, people get sick and they heal, right? We have an immune system. We get sick and we heal. We get injured and we heal. Our bodies have mechanisms built right into them that fight off sicknesses, fight off diseases, and so on. And so most things are self-correcting. You get a cold and you get better, right? That doesn't go for everything, but for a great many things, it's certainly true. I mean, even look at what we're going through right now. We're living through this global pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. And, while it is, while let's put it this way, all right, its infection rate is much higher than the flu. We have no built-in immunity to it, all right? Like I said, its infection rate is higher than, let's say, the normal flu. and its death rate is also higher. Something like, from what I understand, the death rate of regular old flu is something like 0.1%, and the death rate of from COVID-19 on average is about, I don't know, let's say 2%. So that means that the death rate from COVID-19 is about 20% higher than it is for flu. But let's face it, most of the people that are going to get this disease, most of the people that are going to contract COVID-19 are going to live, right? Some of them are going to die. More than we want, right, are going to die. But most of them are going to live. In fact, some of them are going to get very, very, very sick even before they get better, before they recover. But they will. And so your body has, an immune system that a way of fighting off sickness. So most sicknesses are self-correcting anyway. So that's one of the reasons, one of the first things we want to say about traditional healing methods, why any healing method works, is because most things are self-correcting anyway. Okay, now let's get into some other reasons why traditional healing methods are effective, or to the extent to which they are effective. Why is that? So it's this. I'm going to put this up here too, because I'm going to talk about this. Traditional healers are people who have knowledge. They didn't go to medical school, right? They certainly didn't go to medical school. They don't have the kind of knowledge that doctors have, that they've learned out of textbooks and so on, right? They don't have that kind of knowledge. They have knowledge that's been accumulated through generations, right? Accumulated through generations of experience. They have experienced trial and error experience, right? Again, extending back perhaps generations. And they may not know why things work. They just know that they work. So much of what they actually prescribe, right? Much of what they actually prescribe, like if you remember about phytotherapy, using plants, to heal, or using minerals to heal, that much of what they prescribe has an actual drug or an actual, we would call it like a therapeutic effect. Okay. And again, they may not understand the biochemistry of it. They just know that eating this or eating that, or taking this or taking that, right, works. Okay. And they've accumulated that from experience. Now I have a quote here from this guy here, Paul Fahos, right? Paul Fahos is an anthropologist, but he's also a doctor, a medical doctor. And this quote comes from a handout that I was going to give you in class, but I can't, obviously. But I want to talk about this part. So what I have here is all you need to understand about that handout I was going to give to you. Okay. So it's from a book by an anthropologist named Roberta Leinkite, and she wrote a book called High Heels and Bound Feet. And in that book, she has a chapter called Medicine Man. So this is actually a little selection from that. The thing I was going to give you was going to be that chapter called Medicine Man. And she has this little explanation, this little discussion in there about the work of Paul Fahos, because Paul Fahos, like I said, was a medical doctor, and he was studying these traditional and these folk and these indigenous healers, right, and what they did and how they did it. So let's just read this together first. Paul Fahos found that curers were knowledgeable about both common illnesses and their treatments. Treatments such as herbal drugs were the accumulation of generations of trial and error handed down from curer to curer. Okay, so that's what I mean, is they have this accumulated experience. One shaman on the Mentawai Islands in Sumatra, for example, sent patients with diarrhea to the seashore at sundown to lick the soft white earth there, and to do this several times each day, right? So, somebody comes to the shaman with stomach distress, right? Diarrhea, stomach distress, and asks for help. And the shaman tells him to go down at sundown. Okay, I don't know. Well, sundown, I think I go down at sundown. I think that's more for like dramatic effect than anything else. But go down there at sundown and lick this earth, right? Lick this dirt that's down there. And to do that several times a day. Okay. Now, what Fajos did was, let me continue reading. Later, Fajos had samples of the earth chemically analyzed. The cliffs contained kaolin. Okay, kaolin. Now, I don't know if anybody's ever been to CVS, or you guys are probably too young to have this kind of stomach problem. I don't know. But there's a product called kaopectate, which is something you would buy at CVS or Rite Aid or whatever for that. Okay. All right. And kaopectate has in it kaolin, right? So the cliffs that this shaman was telling people to go down and lick had kaolin in it. Kaolin, the active ingredient, type of clay that's frequently used in contemporary Western anti-diarrheal preparations. So, in other words, the treatment that the shaman prescribed, right, for the stomach distress turned out to have actual therapeutic effect. Okay, everybody follow what I'm saying here. So, using all these herbs and using all these roots and minerals and so on, right, can actually have an actual drug or a therapeutic effect. Okay, so that's the second reason why. In other words, what they're doing isn't simple. It's not like superstition or anything. It's from many, many years and many, many generations of experience, including trial and error experience, and accumulating all that knowledge and knowing what's out there, what substances are out there, and what works to cure what. Okay. All right. So now we get to the third reason that traditional healing systems are effective. Okay, that they work. And it has to do with the placebo effect. So I need to move myself out of the way. I'm going to move myself up here. Okay, so there I am. All right. So the placebo effect. Now maybe some of you have heard of the placebo effect. It's also called the meaning effect. Okay, the placebo, right, or the meaning effect of all kinds of things, right, including not just substances but rituals. Now we're gonna talk later on about this, but that whole system of community healing, like that you find among the Kung and so forth, that its effectiveness comes from this meaning effect. Okay, but substances also have a placebo effect. Okay, a meaning effect. That placebo effect is very real. Okay, that placebo effect is very real. It's studied by medical doctors. They look at it. And here's a really important statement, right, is that the placebo effect that we're talking about also plays a role in Western biomedicine. And it plays a role in Western biomedicine in a way that is actually recognized by Western biomedicine. Okay, I'm going to read that next line on that third point. Between 10 and 90% of the efficacy of prescription medicines is due to the placebo effect. Okay, so this word efficacy means effectiveness. Between 10 and 90% of the efficacy of prescription medicines is due to the placebo effect. So that means even when your doctor prescribes you medicine, there's something about the effectiveness of that medicine that you're taking that you account for it by the placebo effect. And one of the reasons we know all about this, and I'm not sure exactly how they come up with these numbers, right? But one of the reasons why we know about the placebo effect of prescription medicine is because in order for, let's say, a drug company to get a medicine approved, it has to be more effective, right, than a placebo. So they do these when they do these trials. They always compare the effectiveness of the medicine to to a placebo. So they'll have like one group that's taking the actual medicine and another group that's taking a placebo, and then they're going to compare the results. And when I first saw these numbers, 10 to 90%, well, I thought, well, that's a pretty wide range, and I'm not exactly sure how they come up with those numbers. I have to find out more about that. I have a feeling that what those are numbers that are talking about the percentage of people that respond to the placebo versus responding to the medicine. Okay. All right, but I need to find out more about that. Now, I talked to my brother about this because he was a vice president for Pfizer Corporation, the big pharmaceutical company. And I asked him about this. I asked him about this number and about the placebo effect of prescription drugs. And he said, yes. I mean, pharmaceutical companies are very interested in that because, like I said, they can't get their medicine, they can't get their drug approved by the FDA unless they can show that it is more effective than a placebo. And since he works for Pfizer, we talked a little bit about the Pfizer's biggest seller. I thought, what's Pfizer's biggest selling drug? It's Viagra, right, for erectile dysfunction. So if you go on the Google machine, you can do a little reading if you're interested in that kind of thing, right? Do a little reading about the placebo effect of erectile dysfunction medications, right? Like Viagra. It's been fairly well documented and it's well discussed. Not that Viagra doesn't also have a physiological effect, a biochemical effect. It's a vasodilator. It dilates blood vessels. Yes, it does, right? But also part of its effectiveness is due to a placebo effect. And let's face it, right? A lot of erectile dysfunction is caused by, it's really psychologically based, okay? And this placebo effect of these erectile dysfunction medications is even stronger when the cause of the problem is psychogenic, right? Psychological, okay? All right, and we know that we have a national crisis of erectile dysfunction, and we have to do something about that. Oh my God, we can't have men not able to perform, right? Oh boy. All right, not that there's other things we shouldn't be worrying about, but okay, that's a whole different story. And then besides these drugs, right, having a placebo effect, surgery can also have a placebo effect. That's very interesting too. Surgery has a placebo effect, and they've done research on that as well. I have a couple of if you're interested in this sort of thing, there's articles out there about this. I have an article here called Identifying Placebo Effects with Data from Clinical Trials by Anup Malani. So maybe a little bit more technical one, okay, but that's a good one. But the one I was more interested in here was about surgery, right? Surgery as a placebo. And one of the things that this article talks about are these experiments that were done using sham surgery. Okay, now people knew they were participating in an experiment, so these were not performed unethically. Okay, but people were the recipients of fake operations. Now, these were for elective surgeries, okay? So people were recipients of fake operations and reported, at the end, reported ease of their symptoms and so forth. So let me do just a little bit of reading from this article, okay? Because I think there's some interesting language in here. Okay. Seen through different eyes, and I want you to keep in mind, like in the back of your mind, have this idea of traditional medicine, right? Traditional healing practices, okay? Shamans, right? Not doctors, but shamans. In some ways, doctors do the same thing that shamans do. But listen to this. Seen through different eyes, the process of modern surgery may look more spiritual, right, than scientific, said orthopedic surgeon Stuart Green, a professor at the University of California at Irvine. Our hypothetical patient is undergoing arthroscopic knee surgery, and the rituals he'll participate in, fasting, wearing a hospital gown, undergoing anesthesia, so those things have a ritual quality to them, okay, especially to the person undergoing them, okay? Fasting, wearing a hospital gown, undergoing anesthesia, having his surgical site prepared with an iodine solution, and giving himself over to a masked surgeon foster an expectation that the procedure will provide relief. Okay? These expectations matter, the article goes on to say. These expectations matter, and we know that they matter because of a bizarre research technique called sham surgery. In these fake operations, patients are led to believe that they are having a real surgical procedure. They're taken through all the pre- and post-surgical rituals, from from fasting to anesthesia to incisions made in their skin to look like the genuine operation occurred. But the doctor does not actually perform the surgery. If the patient is awake during the procedure, the doctor mimics the sounds and sensations of the true surgery, and the patient may be shown a video of someone else's procedure as if it were his own. Okay, right now here, that's what the sham surgery looks like. A 2014 review of 53 trials that compared elective surgical procedures to placebos found that sham surgeries provided some benefit in 74% of the trials and worked as well as the real deal in about half. Okay, wow. All right. So not only is there a placebo effect of prescribed medication, okay, that pill that you take for your blood pressure, right, has a biochemical, physiological drug effect, but it also has a placebo effect, okay? But the placebo effect is also true of surgeries, okay? So surgery also has a placebo effect. So there we have three reasons, right, why traditional healing methods work, right? Number one is that all things are self-correcting, or most things, most sicknesses are self-correcting anyway, all right? Number two, that treatments that are prescribed by shamans and other traditional healers actually do have a drug or therapeutic effect because of substances that they're using. And third has to do with the meaning effect or the placebo effect. And that applies not only to traditional healing methods, but the placebo effect is also something very real in Western biomedicine as well. Okay, that might be a good thing for all my nurses out there to understand. For this reason, okay, end on that. This is a good thing for all of you to remember, okay, if you're going into this field. Be enthusiastic. Remember the placebo effect. 30% of medicine is showbiz. right? I like that. 30% of medicine is showbiz. Showbiz. That's why the shaman had the people go down at sundown. It was showbiz. Okay. And 30%, according to Ronald Spark, 30% of medicine is also showbiz. All right. So it's up to you nurses out there when you're dealing with your patients to be convincing. You will help your patient by being convincing and being positive and being optimistic. Okay? All right. That's all for now. So that's part 5. And the next thing we're going to move into are theoretical perspectives, medical anthropology and its main theoretical perspective. So we will see you on the other side. Okay, we'll be back soon. All right, take care now.